Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Shai, Ba'ashem, Dash. Double honors unto the elder apostles of great most honorable well. Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Esther, chapter 10, verse 1. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land, upon the isles of the sea. Right, and in the first chapter of this book, basically spoke to the tune of Xerxes, or as the scriptures uh, recorded, Ahasuerus having control over 127 provinces. So he had a great kingdom. And as in line with the prophecy in the book of Daniel, as far as the key kingdoms upon the earth pertaining to the captivities of the children of Israel, and in the eyes of the Heavenly Father, the main kingdoms, you have the statue with a head of gold, uh, silver, um, brass, and then iron. And then it goes on to the feet of miry clay mixed with iron. These represent key kingdoms, right? The gold pertains to the Babylonian Empire, really starting with the Assyrian Babylonians, right? And then going into the silver being the Medo-Persian Empire. Then after followed by the brass being the the Greeks, right? And then the iron representing the Romans. Now, when you progress through all of those four, well, really five kingdoms, all right, because the fifth one is a reincarnation of the fourth, but still it's five different elements. What you find is you have a superior element, or uh, just say element for lack of a better word, gold, silver, brass, iron, and then miry clay mixed with iron. These things basically represent, when you deal with the gold, it represents the opulence of the kingdom, how beautiful it is, how rich it is. But then one thing you notice with all of these metals is they move on to they basically are more malleable. Like gold is extremely malleable, meaning soft. All right, it's a very soft material. Silver, same thing, a very soft material. But then as you progress on, the the opulence or the wealth or the representation of its riches grows in inferiority, but the strength of it grows all the more. And this is why these kingdoms had a lot more landmass um, um, under their rulership. Because as I mentioned before, the Medo-Persian Empire proceeded after the Babylonian Empire, represented the silver. It had more states, but it wasn't as wealthy and rich and highly revered as the Babylonians were. All right, so this the power that King Ahasuerus was tapping into is a lot of power, man. So I really get verse 1. And the King Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land, right? So he made all of those 127 states he taxed them basically. They had to send him money. And upon the isles of the sea, which he also controlled, pertaining to, I would guess, pertaining to the Greeks, all right? Because it was, I forget the name of it, the Aegean Sea, but I believe you have the Aegean. I forget there's a word for clusters of islands, but nevertheless, reading on verse 2, and all the acts of his power and his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? Right. So these are records that are now long gone and forgotten. Mind you, Mordecai himself isn't revered in great reverence. He isn't a man that everyone, even in the scriptures, he's not revered as greatly as he is. But he did, the fact that you have a high holy day after the events of his judgment, all right, and as far as um his niece in Queen Esther, it really shows you that this man was a great man of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, all right, and it rightfully so he stood before Ahasuerus. Verse 3, for Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. Right, so this man was a man of the people, he was a people's champ. Right, as far as he wasn't about acquiring wealth for himself. Even when we really go back and review of the word, you know, he had his best intentions as far as his niece. He told her that basically it was an opportunity to, um, being the queen over Persia. And even then, when she had the power, he made her aware that, you know, she should be mindful not to basically just think that, okay, because I'm protected by the king, protected by King Asarus, that I can basically get away with doing whatever I want, and I ain't got to worry about the Jews suffering, because the funny thing is no one knew, all right, and it may have been more folly that would have followed after the fact. Okay, it could have been that, it could have get found out later on somehow, some way, and then Esther would have got killed, and then everyone else would have been delivered. And that's how Mordecai put it. This man is very aware of the Heavenly Father's judgments, and to be that aware, where would you find that understanding? It would have been in the Word, right? And this is one thing that's very, very telling, because in most of the kingdoms, when we read in these scriptures, in the writings, all right, the history, you find that our people are always some way, somehow up in the mix as far as the hierarchy within these various different nations. And that really is down to what the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which would be our wisdom among the nations. And that's why they really revere us so highly, because whenever make use of the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the Heavenly Father that pertains to this Bible, you wind up coming out on top. All right. People can pick up, the little trivial things that don't really matter, you know, personalities or things of that nature. But the reality is that the truth of the matter is that what makes it, as far as us having the power that we have. All right. So I'll read it all again. So, and the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking to the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. So with that, I pray you're edified to the next one.